Alright, so in today's video, what I am going to do is I'm going to walk you through Andersen's 2024 graduate program. I'm going to talk about the eligibility requirements, the recruitment stages, and just general information that you need to know and prepare for in order to get recruited into Andersen's graduate program. Hello everyone and welcome back to the YouTube channel. I am Rhoda Olabisi. If you're for the first time, I would need you to smash that subscribe button again. It really helps my channel to grow. So in case you do not know, Andersen is a consulting firm. They do tax, they do business advisory and all other things like that, and they are currently recruiting for their 2024 graduate program. Applications are open to the 12th of August 2023. The link to apply will be in the comment section, right? So let's talk about the eligibility requirement. The first eligibility requirement is that you need to have at least 5 credits in your WAEC in one sitting, including maths and English. The second eligibility requirement is that you must not be more than 27 years old at the time of application. At the time you're applying, you can't be more than 27. Basically, you can be 26, 25. You could also be 27. It's just that you can't be 28 at the time you're submitting your application, right? So the third eligibility requirement is that they take people from all disciplines. So whether you studied CRS education, Yoruba, whatever it is you study, to be honest, you can apply to Andersen. They take and consider people from all disciplines, right? The third or the fourth eligibility requirement now is that they want people who have finished with a minimum of a 2-1. If you finish with a 2-2, unfortunately, you cannot apply except you're a law graduate. Now, the only instance when they take 2-2 graduates is from law students who have finished from the Nigerian law school. So a minimum of a 2-1 from every other discipline, but they accept 2-2 from law graduates. Then the fifth and the last eligibility requirement is as regards your NYSC status. Once people who have either enrolled or completed their NYSC. So that means that you must either be doing your NYSC at the time you're submitting an application, or you must have completed it, or you must have been exempted. And in the instance where you exempted, they will need the proof of exemption. I think there is a certificate that they issue when they exempt you from NYSC, right? So these are the only 3 instances where you are allowed to apply to Andersen's 2024 graduate program. So now that I've talked about the eligibility requirements, let's jump into the recruitment stages. Now, in total, Andersen has 3 recruitment stages. The first one is the aptitude test. Now, I feel like this one is a given. Usually, it's not even usually, like 99% of the time for graduate programs, you always have to take an aptitude test. Now, the type of aptitude test that different organizations administer differs, but we're speaking specifically to Andersen. Andersen uses a GMAT test for their aptitude test. So you know that what you can do is you can just get familiar with GMAT prep questions, be familiar with the structures that they take, be familiar with how to answer GMAT questions, because there is a specific way to answer those kind of questions. So what you can do is just make sure that you've practiced and you've prepped and just know how the structure, the way, the method to answering those kind of questions. Because now that you know that, okay, the GMAT that Andersen uses, yeah, sure, you don't have to start using SHL, you don't have to start using every other type of test that there is. So just focus on GMAT, right? So that's the first stage. So if you pass the aptitude test, you'll be shortlisted for the next stage, which is the assessment centers. Now, the assessment center is divided into 3 different stages. We have the group exercise, we have the individual presentation, then we have the panels interview. Now, I feel like the names are pretty self-explanatory, and their process or their recruitment stage is actually very, very similar to KPMG's recruitment process. Because if you've applied to KPMG, or if you watched that video, if you haven't, I'll link it up here. That video also has 3 stages, and that is the aptitude test, the assessment center, and the partners interview. And that's the same thing that actually applies to Andersen as well. So as I was saying, assessment center, we have the group exercise, the individual presentation, and panels interview. So for the group exercise, it's usually a case study that you have to present. They'll give you a case study. Sometimes they'll have given you beforehand, that's before the exact day of the assessment center, and sometimes to be on that day and they'll give you a couple of hours to prepare, right? So we have the group presentation where you be divided into groups and you'll be expected to kind of like answer questions surrounding the case study that you'll be giving. And then we have the individual presentation. You do a presentation by yourself, each person on their own. Then you do a panels interview. It means that you'll be interviewed by multiple people at the same time. So if you pass your assessment center, then you'll be shortlisted for the final stage, which is the partners interview. Now, the partners interview is also a stage that is very, very common amongst consulting firms, and that is usually like the last stage of the recruitment process. Now, for the partners interview, it's going to be one-on-one. It's not a panels interview. It's going to be you and the partner. Just make sure that you've read things that is specific to the unit that you've applied to. If you're applying to tax, for example, make sure you know. I don't want to say know all there is, but make sure you know the basics that there is to tax, and just kind of questions surrounding that specific business unit. If you apply to business advisory, if you apply to transfer pricing, just make sure that you know information that is very specific to that unit, because the partner that is going to interview you would be in that unit that you've applied to. So best believe that they're going to ask you questions that is very specific to that unit. So if you pass your partner's interview, then you get an offer to join Andersen Nigeria. And that's basically all there is to Andersen's recruitment process. So just to recap, we have the aptitude test, the assessment center that is divided into 3: the group exercise, the individual presentation, panels interview, then the last stage is your partner's interview, right? And that's just it. So for this week's highlight section, we're going to talk about 2 particular companies that are also currently recruiting, and they are also consulting firms as well. All right, so BCG is currently recruiting for their graduate analyst program. Applications are open to the 25th of August 2023. Now for BCG, I intend to make a full video for it next week, talking about the recruitment processes and the eligibility requirements and just general information that you should know and prepare for in order to get recruited into the program. But I cannot promise or commit that that video will be out next week, because there are some things that will determine whether that video will be out or not, right? So fingers crossed that I'm able to put out that video next week, right? So apart from BCG, the second company, now I don't know how this name is pronounced, but I don't want to try and then make a blunder, if you get me. So yeah, I'm going to spell it out on the screen. This company is currently recruiting for their graduate training program, and it is also a consulting firm. So they do tax, they do audit, and they do advisory services. Now the company has not specified a deadline for the application, which means they can close it anytime. They could have even closed it now as I'm speaking. But yeah, immediately you watch this video, just go and apply. The link to apply to all of these companies, that's BCG, Andersen, and the third company that I cannot pronounce, the link to apply will be in the comment section. All you have to do is click the link and go apply to the recruitment programs. So that has brought us to the end of today's video. Do not forget to drop questions in the comment section. I will respond to as many as I can, and do not forget to give this video a thumbs up.